Some smiling faces. We're blessed with another mild day at the beginning of March, right? That's amazing. Well, we're excited that each of you are here today. I know a lot of you have a passion for health, and we want to have our bodies functioning the best, so we're excited that Pedro is able to come and share with us, not only this afternoon, but also tomorrow afternoon as well, starting at 2:30 as well. But I'd just like to have a word of prayer, just to ask for God's blessing on our time together, and then I'm just going to turn the time over to Pedro. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, you are the creator, you're the author of life, and your word tells us that you want us to be in good health, even as our soul prospers. And so we ask that you will bless Pedro as he shares, that we can learn, and that you will just put your spirit here this afternoon. And we ask this in Jesus' name, amen. Pedro, thank you so much for being willing to share with us this afternoon.
All right. Well, this is loud and clear. Everybody can hear me, I'm sure. I call this the Yes Lecture. You know why? Because it's right after lunch, and all of you will be saying, yes, 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 yes. So I know that you totally agree with me, and that's great, but I'll do my best to keep you awake. How about that? We're going to be able to spend some good time together. I developed these lectures as last year, actually, and they are data intensive. Each area that we're going to look at has 3 clinical studies behind it, and each lecture has 3 different areas. So we're going to be looking at 9 clinical studies. Nonetheless, to say, we're going to go through a lot of data. So what I've done is that I put those lectures in PDF so that you can go back and read the data, right? Because it's going to be a lot of stuff thrown at you. And I don't expect that you're going to be able to write it all down, because we're just going to not have that time. But I do promise you that it is worthy of your time. It has been an incredible blessing to me. And if you watched it last year, or if you were able to experience it last year, guess what? I have fresh new studies from 2026 in here. I think you'll be utterly blessed. Okay, so we're going to spend a little time together, and I know the Lord will bless us in that regard. Well, you're supposed to be working. Let's see if it wants to work. It doesn't want to work. That's okay. We'll use this. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Pedro Naranjo, and I'm a firm believer in God's Word and a follower of Jesus. Why do I tell you that? Because I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of clinical data, but I'm also going to be sharing with you things that are partaken from the biblical, point of view. And I think that's important because as you go through these things, it's not just from the purely intellectual area, but I'm also appealing to you from a biblical Christian perspective, which is the one that I hold. I have studied the health message for over 23 years. On the area of technology, I'm a solutions architect. And the area of health, I'm a certified health coach by Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. I'm also a professional member of American College of Lifestyle Medicine and a master herbalist from American College of Healthcare Science. More importantly, I am blessed with my beautiful wife, Maria, and 2 children who have grown, and, wouldn't you believe it, they're finishing their masters and doing crazy stuff. You know how they are. The ability for us to study together will be a real blessing. Now, we have a total of 3 main lectures that we're going to look at. The main 2 intensive ones will be today. We're going to have our lecture 1. I'm sure you're going to have questions like, does that really mean that? Did he really say that? And that's okay. Write down your questions, because at the end of every section, I'll give you a mini Q&A, okay? That means a timed Q&A of a couple of minutes. Then give you a little bit of a break, and then we'll get into the second lecture. Now, if you really want to have time to go into a full Q&A, that's tomorrow. When is it? Tomorrow, that's right. And so you write down your questions, you kind of digest this data a little bit. What does that mean to me? And we'll be able to go through those together. There are some of you that, I'm sure invariably, everywhere I go, say, well, I want to know about my particular situation. Can I talk to you? And yes, you can. It's totally free. My wife will have a little list of those who want free consultation afterwards. The consultations are mainly for tomorrow afternoon. If you cannot make it tomorrow, then I'll make an exception and we can have a chat today, okay? The Q&A will not be recorded, but so that you have some privacy and you can feel free to ask your questions, but the main lectures will be recorded. Are you guys ready? All right, so what is the brain-gut connection? Before I get into this, though, I have to give you a little bit of AP, right? Because most people are like, brain, gut, are they like really connected? Really? They're like, one is over here, the other one's somewhere down here. And most people point to their intestines as, you know, the whole area where the gut is. And that is true, composed of two major parts. So let's go through a little bit of anatomy and physiology together, because that's going to make the groundwork for us to understand what these things are. All right, so there is your brain and there is your guts. Now, how many parts does the guts have? One major two parts does it have normally? Anybody knows? Yeah, the large and the small intestine. Now, you know that, funny enough, the small intestine is larger than the large intestine, right? So how long is your small intestine? Very, very long. About 17 feet long, okay? And how large is your large intestine? Or what's the distance? About 3 feet or so. You have about 20-some feet of intestines in there. And it's called the large and the small because the large one holds the fecal matter before it's eliminated from the body. And the small is literally all turtled up right there in the middle. So what you're looking at is the large that goes right over it, and it comes down to the anus, and then you're looking at the small in the middle. And of course, you see the brain, and you're looking at the side part of the brain there with its different parts. So the brain and gut communicates bidirectionally. Which way? So that means two-way communication. Not only does the brain talk to the gut, which we kind of all knew, but the gut talks to who? To the brain. And that's very, very important. It's to the nervous system, the enteric nervous system, and the signals. More nerve cells in the gut than anywhere else in the brain. So the brain has all of these nerve cells, you know, that you have there for, called neurons, how you communicate. But your guts have how many? It's in the slide. 500 million. Nowhere else in your body do you have so much nerve endings and neurons than in your gut. Okay, so the brain is number one. Number two is your gut. More complex neural network outside of the brain and can operate somewhat independently. This is very important when you start understanding these sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Often refers as to the second brain. More neurons than the spinal cord, which only has 13 million. And mind you, your spinal cord is kind of like the highway, right? It comes out, it steams out of your cortex, it runs all right down onto your funny bone, somewhere in there. And from there, you steam pretty much all the nerve connections to your body. But the gut has even more connections. And the health or disease of one can affect the other. Okay, and that's something that we're going to look at in essence. So this is the brain on the top, and that's your gut at the bottom. And you can see that it has connections to, what's this little guy right here? Well, you can see the mouse. Oh, can you see the mouse? No, you can't see the mouse. Oh, you can? Okay, how about that? Can you see, who's that guy there? That's the stomach. Oh, it has labels. That's not fair. What? I needed to make it more difficult for you guys. All right, so yes, it is. It connects to the stomach. To what else? What do you see there? We kind of went through this. What's that big guy that kind of goes over? That's the large intestines, yeah. And right behind or in the middle, what do you got? The small intestine. It has connections through it to what is called the vagus nerves, okay? This vagus nerves has a literal highway by which your brain communicates directly to your guts. Have you ever heard the expression, I had that gut feeling that he was not a good guy for you? Well, that's a literal feeling. There is a gut feeling because that your gut was feeling for you, so to speak, that, hey, that was not a good idea. Does that make sense? Because they're literally connected. That's not a joke. That is truly there. And they're able to communicate one to another. Now, this is going to come later on, but this is something that I want you to keep in mind for as we get into the more details on it. The body, when you go into fight or flight mode, okay, your cortisol is high, your hormones trying to shoot up out there because something has happened. The body automatically goes into kind of survival mode or ready to take action mode. And at that point, it makes a distinction between the systems of the body. Okay? So what are primary systems of your body, your brain, your extension, the motor system, etc., that's primary, and this stays prime, top of the line. Secondary systems, digestive systems, etc., those will shut down. Okay? So let me just give you an example. If you're stressed out and you don't have a relish for food and your meal didn't taste like anything, or you try to eat something you had indigestion, that's because when you're in high stress mode, your stomach, your system for digestion shuts down. Okay? That is so that all of your energy is into this mode of meeting the whatever emergency you're at. Okay? Your liver releases all the glucose that it has, and it goes into, you're ready to take action. But sometimes the action is just here. It's a lot of stress or things that are going on. And so there is a distinction between those, and that is going to become very important later on in the lecture as you're able to see. Okay, so what functions does it influence? Well, it controls hunger, satiety, that's whether you feel full or not, food preferences and cravings, gut motility, that is how long does it take you to kind of empty your gut for the food to go through, digestion, metabolism, mood, behavior, stress levels, and context and function. It also deals with pain sensitivity and what else? Immunity. Now, if you notice, I should have mentioned this before. In every one of my slides, you will see a reference point at the bottom. So everything that I'm telling you has been well documented and researched, and I always give you the reference so that you can go out and check it out yourself. And you'll be able to read this data and come out with the definition you have. So your gut and your brain, this connection has a lot of control over things that sometimes we don't quite attribute to the gut, right? Or the whole system of digestion. Remember that some of those connections were into the stomach as well. Do you notice that? It wasn't just the gut, because before it gets to the gut, where does it have to go through? That's right. It has to go through the stomach and be able to make it there. All right. What can happen? What conditions would happen, or what disorders do you normally see when these two are not functioning together? Isn't that picture cute? Yeah. Do you notice how well the artist portrayed the large intestine? Anyway. Well, you can have IBS, okay? Irritable bowel syndrome, anxiety, depression, Parkinson's, autism, chronic pain. They talk about the treatment, of course, and they talk about probiotics, plant-based diet, antibiotics, fecal transplant. I don't know if you're up for that. Mind-body therapy, of course. When we talk about whole foods, plant fiber prebiotics, making sure you're eating the right stuff. And, of course, in the literature, they also talk about relaxation, CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, biofeedback to improve the gut-brain axis, meaning how the two are connected together. So now we're ready to get kind of into the lecture. Each lecture has 3 main points. I'm coming out and telling you what the points are. So point number 1 is we're going to look at the sympathetic relationship between the brain and the stomach. And when I say the stomach, that's not just the stomach, but you understand the whole digestive system. The effects of improper diet on mental function, and the appetite control and mental clarity. All right, so let's go through point number 1. The main thing that we're going to see in point number 1 is that the brain and the nerves are in sympathy with the stomach. Who are they in sympathy with? With the stomach, that's right. This is quite interesting. Erroneous eating and drinking will result in what? If you're asleep, raise your hand, please. No one raised their hand yet, right? So, erroneous thinking or eating and drinking resulting in erroneous thinking and acting. That's quite interesting, don't you think? And I'm going to show you that from the clinical studies and from the literature as well. Now, before we get into the clinical studies, I always like to bring you some of my favorite quotations that talk about that from one of my favorite authors, and the book references are there. Let's read the first one. The health of the body is to be regarded as essential to grow in grace and the acquirement of an even temper. What kind of temper? Even temper, okay? If the stomach is not properly cared for, the formation of an upright moral character will be highly beneficial. Is that right? No? What does it say? He will be hindered. It's the opposite. The brains and nerves are in sympathy with the stomach. They're buddies. Erroneous eating and drinking results in erroneous thinking and acting. Now, when was this written? 1909. Okay, keep that in mind. The stomach is closely related to the brain. When the stomach is diseased, the nerve powers is called from the brain to aid in the weakened digestive organs. That is something to think about. Have you guys heard that little story from Eric Behair called The Mean Old Mistress? You guys have heard that before? Oh, if you have not, check it out. It's called The Mean Old Mistress by Eric Behair. You will be for a trip. An amazing analogy of this exact same thing that we just talked about. Okay, the brain is closely connected with the stomach, and its powers have so often called to the aid of the weakened digestive organs that it in turn is weakened, depressed, and what? Congested. Now, what I'm showing you here, in what year is this written in? 1865, okay? I'm making a point there, so you'll see why. What I'm sharing with you here is what seems to be some incredible insights in the human body and how it works. But the question that I have for you is, was this the fig imagination of the author, or does clinical research show that the author was years in advance of her time? And that's what we're going to look at next. Okay. All right, so let me show you the breakdown of how this is. The main summary of the clinical studies are there for you and I to explore. And the references are at the bottom. I was careful to make sure that not only do you have the full reference, but you also have the direct link if you want to read the paper. Some of these papers, though, you need to have clinical access to be able to get to them, but some other ones are free. At least the abstract is always free. You'll be able to read and be able to see that. So let's look at number 1. Two-way street. The gut and brain constantly communicates through the what? Neural pathway, especially the vagus nerve. We already saw that's normal AP, as you know it. Because of this direct link, gut dysfunction heavily impacts what? Mood. IBS patients, which stands for irritable bowel syndrome, patients experience incredible high rates of anxiety and depression because of how their guts are. And this is just looking at the clinical data that they were able to find. So the stomach health is truly equal to brain health. An imbalance in gut bacteria, dysbiosis, doesn't just affect digestion, it directly alters how we think and what? And behave. I mean, would you think that the food that you eat could give you depression? Absolutely, it does. It absolutely does. There are certain things that will give you energy and strength and vigor, and there are other things that just plain make you sleepy and just want to go to sleep. If you want to try this, you can have a high-fat meal. In a high-fat meal, after you take it, you feel sluggish and you feel sleepy right after. Why? Because that high-fat meal has to now be broken down through the digestive system. First, it has to go through the stomach. It has to go all the churning and processing, who then goes into the duodenum, which is the beginning of the small intestine. And the duodenum is picky. The duodenum goes like, okay, Mr. Stomach, did you chew this enough? No, I don't like it. Go chew it some more. Okay, and of course, the stomach doesn't chew food, but you know, it churns, right? Stomach is a muscle, and it just literally contracts and relaxes, contracts and relaxes. And so you don't have teeth down there, your teeth are up here, for a reason, because they have to literally work on it, and the duodenum will not let it go past until it's ready, so that it will be able to have that blessing. That is something very important, that we have to make that connection. Whatever we put in our mouth directly affects our mind. Okay, I'll give you another one. Let's say you have a math test, okay? What would you rather have? One food category that will give you quick energy to recall all the data that you crammed last night, or that you studied before, or another food category that will literally bleed cloud your brain and not let your frontal lobe think correctly. Which of the two would you have before the math? The first one, right? The one that will give you that energy. Now, what food do you think that will be? What is it? Berries? Well, that's very good. It's a simple fruit. It could be, if you're going to have a high demanding test, it's best for you to have a fruit-only meal, okay? That gives you the energy you need because it's in the fructose combined with the fiber. You will not find apple juice in nature. You will find apples. The apple juice was an invention from us, who are too lazy sometimes to chew the apple. But you know what I'm saying? So a fruit meal will do that. Now, what other food do you think that will literally becloud your frontal lobe and not let you think correctly? What was it? Sugar would diminish your immune system, but not becloud your frontal lobe directly. Give it another try. What was it? French fries. You're close, but not close enough. You're getting there. Carbs. It's pizza. Pizza. Yeah, that's right. Why? Because pizza is high in cheese. And cheese has a protein called casein. And this protein called casein not only was found by the largest clinical study, the China study, to literally turn on cancer, but it actually interferes by the high amount of fat and other metabolisms with your frontal lobe. This is why the same author goes on to say that cheese is a food not fit for human consumption. It should have never been introduced into the human body. Isn't that something interesting? She was definitely ahead of her time. So this study definitely shows us that she was right on the money. Let's look at the second one here. Okay, diet impacts the mood. Gut bacteria directly influence our mood and mental health through the bidirectional communication network of the gut-brain axis. The gut provides approximately 95% of the body's total serotonin. Now, what is serotonin and what is its main use? I'm sure you guys have heard of serotonin before, especially if you have, starts with S, problems. Sleep problems, that's right. Your doctor might have said, hey, just take some melatonin or serotonin, right, for it, because you want to get your sleep. So serotonin works with melatonin. It's one of those hormones that lets you be calm, okay? So in the brain, what is called the circadian rhythm, there are two major hormones at play. There is cortisol and there is melatonin. Okay, so in the morning, cortisol rises because it's time to get up. Melatonin decreases, okay, because it's not time to go to sleep. At 6:30 p.m., if your circadian clock is correct, it should then have a reverse effect. You begin to slow down by decreasing cortisol and increasing serotonin and melatonin. Why? Because it's trying to shut down the frontal lobe and say, hey, listen, buddy, it's time to take a rest and get ready to go to sleep, right? And that's why, above all things, it's important that you realize that when you fight against your body and you do not use your body the way that God intended it to, you're not going to have the right thing. So, how much percentage of serotonin is made where? 95% is made where? That's right, in your gut. Okay, making the digestive health absolutely critical for emotional regulation. All right? So, high sugar diets and stress actively increases the gut permeability. That's what's called the leaky gut, which allow toxins to trigger body-wide systemic inflammation. What do we find in these things? Erroneous eating leads to erroneous acting by disrupting the gut's ability to produce and manage the mood-stabilizing chemicals. So if one end, you're praying really hard that you want the good Lord to bless you with even temper, but in the other end, you're eating hot peppers, what is going to happen? You're going to have a hot temper, right? Because you just ate some hot peppers. Does that make sense? Now, I personally have a hot temper by nature, so if I hit hot peppers, that makes me doubly hot. And just the fact that I came from a hot country, Cuba, that makes me triply hot, right? So my wife said, no hot stuff for you. And that's a good choice, because that allows me to be aware of my conditions and make smart choices that allow me to have the best outcome. When I do not put the right food in my body, your serotonin is impacted, because if your gut is not working correctly, then these hormones are not working correctly either. Does that make sense? Now, inside of your gut, how do you absorb your food? Does it just magically go into your bloodstream? How do you get it from inside of your gut? Anybody? I heard some people say something. Oh, yes, the bilia. I like how you put it like that. It looks like little fingers. That's true. They're like this, right? And they're literally inside. And they're so cool, because literally in every bilia, there are mini bilias. There is a whole world in there, okay? I don't have pictures of it because this is extra. But what I'm trying to tell you is, when the food comes down, okay, and the little bilias are trying to literally grab the food, and they allow the bacteria to decompose it and they absorb it into your bloodstream. When they're trying to do their job, as the food moves through your intestines, can you imagine if somebody were to grab them and stick them close together like this? So they lose mobility, okay? They don't have the ability to do this. Stick them together like this. And then when they stick them together like this, they also stick them in groups like this. So now they can't move. They lost all flexibility. And peristalsis says that the food moves from left to right. So now the food is moving, and they can't do their job. And so what happens? They're depressed. Okay? That's right. I just described to you leaky gut. And what is one of the main food components that does this? Well, sugar helps in that area. But you will find it in things like carrageenan, which is a thickening agent of milk. Okay, not of the regular dairy milk, but soy milk or plant-based milk. Carrageenan does this exact same thing. It sticks uvula together, and now they lost all mobility, and as the food processes through, they're depressed, literally depressed. That then creates gaps in your whole lining, and that's where the leaky gut comes from. So if you're eating carrageenan and you're asking the good Lord for good guts to be able to take your food correctly, can the Lord help you? He can, but you know how He does it? Through education. He educates you so that you say, next time I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to look for that word and not buy it. Did you know that we had a physician go before Congress that carrageenan will be eliminated from the food supply? And the reply was, no, thank you, it's making us millions of dollars. Of course, that's not what they said, but that's exactly what ended up happening. And you can look up the video. Okay? And this doctor avowed for the work that she had done, showing that carrageenan was unfit, that it was not helping us, but it's helping the milk industry. And so it's making them money, but it's not helping us. Does that make sense? So I'm showing you these things because the key words, remember, in the statement before, it said that the digestive system could be depressed. And that's not just thinking about brain terminology. That's talking about the gut. It's literally depressed. Okay? Very important. All right, let's go to the third one here, and we'll jump into the next points. All right, so last one here in this point one is for Parkinson. Okay, in Parkinson's disease, gut dysbiosis, that's when you do not have the right gut bacteria in there, because as you know, you got millions of little critters in your gut just waiting for you to feed them. And that's when you feel hungry. It's not really you, it's them saying, feed me, feed me. No, just kidding. But the point is, you do have them in there. All right, so the gut dysbiosis is when those colonies are out of balance. And gastrointestinal systems often appears years or even decades before any classic motor system. Gastrointestinal dysfunction is a massive early warning sign affecting 60 to 80% of all Parkinson patients. Okay, so let me try to break this down into something that not that you, but I'm saying just in general that we can get. What is the early birth sign of Parkinson's disease? Come on, guys, the answer is there. It could be constipation, right? It's the fact that your gut microbiome, it's not functioning well. You're not having regular bowel movement. Things are not working well. This is an early sign that affects 60 to 80% of Parkinson's disease. Now, I have some beloved friends who have PD, and I can tell you it's terrible because they're there, but they're not there. Are you following me? And you do not want that, because you see what happens in PD is from neuron to neuron, which you have billions of them, there is a connection, okay? And that connection is shielded by something called the myelin sheath. And the neurons, they work through electric impulses. And so what happens is that myelin sheath gets deteriorated, and when the signal fires, it doesn't get to the other end. Or it misfires into something else. And so it's just like you lose the ability to summon up your thoughts. Does that make sense? It's terrible. And an early sign of this is when your gut is not functioning. Do you think this is something to be playing around with? I don't think so. I certainly don't want to be in that group, and I pray that you don't either. The disease signature misfolded proteins, okay, actually begins accumulating in the gut, spreading directly to the brain via the vagus nerves. This gut-to-brain transmission triggers chronological neuroinflammation, which accelerates the neural damage, motor dysfunction, and cognitive decline. Friends, how you treat your gut and your brain, they are literally hand in hand together. This is very, very important that we pay attention to the things that we do. Oh, Pedro, I seen the guy that was doing the cigar thing. He lived to be 90 and he was happy. No, he was not. He died of cancer. Yeah, that's the part that they don't tell you. That's right. Marlboro's, famous guy, died of cancer. And so the point I'm trying to make to you is that sooner or later it will catch up to you. And so it's very important that you pay attention to these things and put them together. All right, so how do we bring point one correspond to a loss of health? It's essential for mental clarity and moral character because erroneous eating leads to erroneous thinking and acting due to that sympathetic connection between the brain and the stomach. How do we make this practical? Okay, Pedro, you blabber about all this stuff, so how do we make this practical, right? How do we make this, how do we take this home? Eat wholesome, natural foods like fruits, vegetables, grains. Notice McDonald's is not in this list. Nuts to maintain good health and dysbiosis, okay? Very important that you keep things moving. Practice mindful eating. What do I say? Oh, some of you are already falling asleep. Okay. Practice mindful eating. That's when you eat thinking. Okay. Have it ever happened to you that you're really hungry and you don't happen to have enough food at home, and so you stop by the store and then you go eat, you go buy the things that you were supposedly going to eat, and you come back to the car and you're like, wow, I have like three times more than I'm physically able to fit in my stomach, right? Because you were buying under the impulse of what? Hunger. And that's not mindful eating. Does that make sense? So it's very important that when you eat, your mind is in control, not your emotions. Are you following me? Many times, if I am in a high-stress situation, I will not eat. I will just simply take water or take a smoothie or something similar or have something simple because I don't want my digestion to be a problem. Does that make sense? Remember that when you're high stress, what shuts down? The guts. That's right. Oh my goodness, did we really run through that much time? Whew, we gotta fly. Okay. Okay, so the next ones are going to have to go a little bit faster. All right, because I took a little bit too much time in this one. All right, let's go through number 2. Effects of improper diet and mental function. Okay, the main theme is improper eating affects the brain, leading to confusion, irritability, and impaired judgment. This is very important, especially not only for the kids who have to go to school, but for the parents that have to deal with the kids that go to school. Are you following me? Because if we as parents have impaired judgment, are we going to deal with our kids correctly? No, right? And so this is not only good for the kids, but good for the parents as well. All right, I'm going to go run through this. The affliction of the stomach affects the brain. The imprudent eater does not realize that he is disqualifying himself to give what? Wise counsel. Disqualifying himself for laying plans for the best advancement of the work of God. Overeating befogs what? The brain. The most precious word may be heard and not appreciated because the mind is confused by what? Improper diet. A dyspeptic stomach, this is a stomach that has been abused, always leads to irritability. Okay? Sore stomach leads to, sour stomachs lead to what? Sour tempers. Very good. Those things that derange the digestion have a benumbing influence on the finer feelings of the heart. Every habit that endures the health reacts upon your feet, right? Upon where? Upon your mind. The brain force is called into active exercise to assist the stomach. Therefore, when the mind or body is taxed heavily after eating, something happens. The process of digestion is hindered. Some very important things that I'm hoping that you are gathering here. All right, let's go to the clinicals for this point number 2. I'm going to try to focus in kind of like the main outcomes, folks, because we got a lot of stuff. We're only in 2 out of 3. All right, so in a massive study of over 18,000 adults, research found that just 100 grams increase in daily sugar intake is associated with an exact 28% higher likelihood of depression. So there is a direct correlation of sugar intake, glucose intake, to what? Depression. Okay? So not only does it give you depression that is for your mind, but it also basically depresses and subdues your immune system as well. Okay? Very, very important. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go through this rather quick. Individuals consuming diets highest in saturated fat face a 39% higher risk of Alzheimer's and 100% higher risk of all-cause dementia, alongside 40% slower memory recall rate. So, in essence, if you want to have these things, please, by all means, eat a diet that is high in fats, especially saturated fats. But if you don't, you have to be careful with what you put in your meal and in your diet, because the clinical data shows us that. Now, let me try to make some sense out of this so you can hopefully see what you're dealing with. If you had a triple bypass operation, open heart surgery, and they just saved your life, okay? And you're thanking the doctor for your life worth, and you should, for saving your life, and the doctor and the medical staff. And so you now are out of the ICU. You're now in recuperation under the auspices of the doctor. And the little lady comes about and says, "What would you like for a meal?" And you look at the menu and say, "Oh, there's, I like that triple cheeseburger and some fries, please, because, I went through a lot. I just, I want to have a good meal." Are you following me? Did you not just come out of the triple bypass? Yes. What gave you the triple bypass? The hamburger. But what are we serving you? Hamburger. Okay. If we were doing due justice to education, what should we be educating this individual? No more hamburgers. Are you following me? But we live in a consumer-based society. And if you want to have another triple bypass, that's okay. It was $100,000 for the hospital and the staff and everything else. And they're happy to take you. Are you following me? And so, if you don't make those choices, no one else will. No one else will. Now, your doctor may mean well and hopefully educate you, but did you know that the original white vest that doctors go into when they do the Socrates oath is that of an educator and teacher? That's really what it's there, to do no harm. But today, we cannot do no harm when you have to pay the high bill that the hospital is expecting for, or the institution. In essence, money matters have taken over what truly should be done as educational purposes. And that's just not my sentiment. That's the sentiment at large if you observe our overall system today. Does that make sense? So you have to make sure that you make these choices, because if you don't, no one else will. Okay? All right, very good. Let's go to the third one here. Okay. This one, I'm going to try to give you, I think this is a very important part. So I'm going to, this is voice for adolescents. Okay. God dysbiosis in teens is directly linked to core behavior issues, including several social withdrawals, okay, and the loss of pleasure. Okay? And this is a situation where their sensory is so much bombarded with social media and all the garbage of the world that they go into a state where everything is okay. They just lost all ability to have feelings. And now everything is okay. As a matter of fact, the more worse or gross it is, the more they like it, because it seems to stimulate something that is not there. Depressed adolescents show a significant 32 depletion of the key healthy gut bacteria compared to healthy peers. This bacteria imbalance is strongly correlates with impaired social function and worsened depressive symptoms. Modulating the gut with targeted probiotics, okay, actively improves adolescent emotion recognition by 18% and significantly reduces depressive symptoms. So, if we have an individual that you love and they're going through depression, does their diet have something to do with it? You bet it does. When Dr. Neil Danley says that you should make some of those happy cookies, he was not kidding. Right? Those cookies will make you happy, because they do. You know, they're amazing. My wife and my daughter make them at home, and they are amazing dessert, and they're healthy dessert that you can make. And they are there because they're rich in omega-3 fatty acids that not only fit your guts, but it also fits your brain. Remember that myelin sheath is protected by that omega-3. Very, very important. All right, so what does it speak to the corresponding loss of health? Indulgence in appetite controls the mind and leads to mental debility. Abstinence, that is eating mindfully, rewards mental and moral vigor. That's a principle that we can live by. How do we put this in practice? Adopt a balanced plant-based diet. Notice the key word. What was the key word? Balance. I've met some people that say, I eat very healthy. I'm vegan. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. And what's that in your plate? Well, I got chips, and they're vegan. And, you know, I got Mountain Dew. It's vegan, too. And, you know, I got Monster, because I need some energy, man. That's vegan, right? And, of course, I got some Twinkles. They're vegan, too. You know, this version is vegan. But it's high in sugar, of course. So my point is, you can be vegan, quote unquote, and eat the junkiest food on planet Earth. That means nothing to me, okay? What means something to me is that you have a balanced plant-based diet. Because did you know that even in a plant-based diet, you can be imbalanced? You can actually do things that are too much. Like, for instance, if you're really, really hungry and you're in an island, okay, what would you rather eat? And if you only had a couple of minutes to eat, coconuts in their full shell and husk, or bananas? Why? Because bananas are made to peel easy, right? Now, do you think that the creator of the bananas had a purpose in mind? Right. What do you think the purpose of the banana was? That you eat what? More for you, because it's easy to peel, easy to get to. Now, if you wanted to eat some coconuts, what do you have to do first? Peel the whole husk, just to find out that there is a hard shell inside the husk. And now you had to break the hard shell to then get to the meat of the coconut. And if it was mature coconut, you got to chew that thing like crazy, because it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? 2 layers of protection. What do you think the designer of the coconut is trying to tell you? you don't need it as much. That's right. But you know what we do? Is we have it at home, de-shelled and all ready to eat, and we just whole handful of whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? That if you had to crack those nuts, you eat 1 or 2 or 3. You'll be tired by the time you do that, right? But since it's already available, we don't pay attention to those things. So in my lecture about nutrition, which is not in this series, I say pay attention to the package of your food. It has instructions for you. It's not just there for nothing. It has instructions for you, okay? So plant-based diet, a balanced plant-based diet with adequate fiber, nutrients, and that support the microbiota, the gut microbiota. And of course, this will reduce irritability. Limit processed food and sugars that can cause inflammation and brain fog. And of course, we have the words from Wise Solomon, my son, attend my words, for they are what? They are life to you. You know, I think that is very wise. All right, last one here before we wrap up this lecture is appetite control and mental what? Clarity. Okay, very good. Now, to do you a favor, I'm going to ask you to stand for me for a minute here before we get into this last point. Then I want you to go ahead and walk a little bit in place if you can. Okay, and then I want you to stretch and just knock your neck. No, I mean, just stretch a little bit. All right, that's good. There's some movement. And then let's take a deep breath through your nose. Hold it and let it go. Oh, yeah, that feels good. Another deep breath. Come on, and and hold it, and yes, let it go. Very good. You may be sitting now. I think you're going to pay attention to this one. All right, very good. Controlling appetite leads to clearer thinking and what? Better mental health. What's the key word in the beginning? Controlling appetite, okay? Very good. That's the main idea. Let's read this. Through appetite. Who's that next individual? Satan controls the mind and the whole being. Did you read that right? I hope you did. Through appetite, Satan controls the mind and the whole being. Thousands who might live have passed into the grave, physical, mental, and moral wrecks, because they sacrifice all of their powers to the indulgence of appetite. Now, this is the same author who I just shared with you before, who was certainly years ahead of her time. Okay? And is given insight of what happens into the mind. Indulgence of the appetite is the greatest cause of mental debility, physical and mental debility. And it lies at the foundation. At where? The foundation of feebleness, which is apparent everywhere. We're going to check out if these statements are true by clinical research. Abstemiousness, that's thinking what you eat, in diet is rewarded with mental and moral vigor. And it also aids in the control of the passions. Very good. Overeating, even of the simplest foods, benumbs the sensitive nerves of the brain and weakens its vitality. Overeating, even of fruits, even of healthy things, even of the simplest foods, could actually weaken the vitality of your digestive organs. And we already have learned that it's not a good deal when you do that, right? All right, so study number 1 that talks about this is talking about a specific strain of probiotics and the beneficial modulation that it has toward neurotransmitters in your brain. In a human clinical trial, participants taking a daily probiotic formulation experienced a massive 50% improvement in depression and anxiety scores. What were they taking? Probiotics. What in the world? What's that anyway? I like that, right? Yeah, it could come from vegetables. But what is probiotics and what is it doing? And why did it do this for them? Any ideas? What's a probiotic? It's pro something, right? Probiotic. So who is the pro for? Who is it giving a life to? The biotic, the gut that is in your lining of your guts, basically. Probiotic is nothing more than feeding your gut. What is the main food source of your gut bacteria? Shout it out to me. What does it like to eat to be healthy? What is it? That is correct. It is fiber. It's not sugar, because as you understand, the body per se cannot really process, quote unquote, sugar. It's turned into glucose, right? But glucose has precursors. So it could be fructose, lactose, saccharose. It could be simple. It could be complex. And they all distill down to the same thing. But my point is that when it comes down to it, the gut thrives on fiber. Now, how much fiber is there in apple juice? 0. You left out the goodies, threw out the baby with the bathtub, and ate the other stuff. Now, the phytonutrients in the apple juice, especially green apple juice, it's very helpful if you have certain conditions. Like, for instance, let's say you have kidney stones. It is recommended that you take green apple juice and you drink 1 liter a day, and that will take the edges of the stones so that they pass more readily. Okay? It has therapeutic uses. But do I recommend to my clients that they take apple juice like water? No. Because you're missing what? The fiber. And that's the key. Did you know that apple juice will spike your blood sugar, or could, depending on which apple it is, like Coca-Cola does? Oh, but I thought it was apple juice. I thought it was fruit. Well, the problem is that, you see, you don't find apple juice in nature. What do you find? Apples. And apples have the fructose bound to what? The fiber. And because they're bound together, they're just not readily available. So who has to break it down? Your gut, the gut bacteria. And it gives you that even release of the food source that you need for your body. Okay? So, very important that we realize that. The study proved that probiotics actively reduce chronic physical stress, documented as a 13% drop in stress hormone cortisol. So, in essence, when you take and you give your little critters in your gut, so to speak, your bacteria, when you feed it right, it treats you right. Does that make sense? It's very important that you do the right thing. And in a regular diet, that comes from the vegetables that you eat and everything else that has the fiber. Okay, second study here. We're told that the gut microbiome actually regulates the appetite and producing specific metabolites like short-chain fatty acids, and they communicate directly with the central nervous system, because the exact same neural pathway regulate both physical society and our emotional state. Balancing the gut simultaneously controls overeating and stabilizing the mood. Clinical trials prove this connection. Targeted gut modulation using probiotics resulted in that 50% of depression and anxiety scores and 60% improvement in anger and hostility. That's just by feeding your gut the right thing. Isn't that incredible? So if you have an anger issue, could it be your food? I mean, I'm serious. Could it be the food? I mean, do you think I was joking? I'm Caribbean. I'm Caribbean. From Cuba. What else can I say? Talk to my wife. She will tell you. And so if I have a very volatile character, so to speak, a strong character, and I eat things that make me even more volatile, what do you think is going to happen? It's a recipe for disaster. Does that make sense? So I had to choose to not eat hot stuff. And let me tell you, 20-some years ago, I could eat hot stuff at the par with my mother-in-law, which is pure-blooded Mexican, and they eat hot stuff. You know what I'm saying? And even sometimes more, I will say. But the point is, when I learned these things, I made a choice. And it has helped my temper. So I think you have to talk to my wife. She'll tell you the truth about that. So very important that you realize that this information does change your life and my life. Okay, let's go to point number 3. Gut and brain communicates bidirectionally. You already know this. Because of this regulation, basically what this study shows that there is a control of mood and in the handling of continence tasks. So when you do not have, I'll read the bottom line, controlling your gut health through proper nutrition actually reduces neuropsychiatric symptoms like confusion, stress, and poor judgment. Now, these things are the same things that we read before that are barely coming out through the studies. When is the study from? 200 and what? 2025. This study just came out reassuring us the same that you read from the 1900s. Because this information for us is so incredible, and we are reaffirming this now through the clinical data that we are seeing time and time again. Okay, what does this mean for you and I? We need to chew our food. Now, where are your teeth? Right here. Does your stomach have teeth? Okay, does your gut have teeth? Okay, so what happens when you eat like an aspirator? Who does the chewing? Well, your poor stomach, who has no teeth, has to literally squeeze the life out of that food and produce more high-caloric acid so that it literally dilutes the food and squeezes it and lets it go, and squeezes it and lets it go. And it tires your stomach out. You sometimes feel tired after the meal because your stomach is tired. Because you didn't chew your food, and it had to do the chewing for you. And then after that, it begins to cry. And you say, no, the stomach doesn't cry. Okay, I'm sorry. You will do the crying then. It will just pain, right? You know my point? You have to chew your food. So I teach my clients what I call the hands-free chewing method. What is it called? Hands-free. And it's so complicated that you will not believe it. Here's how it goes, okay? You take a bite of food, and you put your utensils down, and your hands are free until you chew your food. Wow. That's impressive. I know. I actually wrote a paper showing you about this because you know how we eat. I'll tell you how we eat. We sit there, we're hungry, and there's a psychological effect to this, and you see the food, and you want your food here, right away, okay? And so you take the first bite, and what do we do immediately as that first bite comes in? What do we do immediately? We begin to prepare the next bite. You know what you're telling your brain? Hey, dude, hurry up. Swallow that stuff down because I'm hungry. Get the next one in. Are you following me? And so before you even had 3 good chews on that food, you get the next one in. And either you look like a chipmunk, right? Or because you don't quite want to look like a chipmunk, so you kind of swallow it down. And your poor stomach gets to do the chewing that it's not supposed to. Now, this is detrimental. Why? Because the salivary gland has enzymes that are found, guess where else? Nowhere else in your body. They're only here. And they're used to break down those complex carbohydrates that are needed later on in your gut. So when you do not chew your food properly, you cannot digest it properly. So literally what happens is the food comes in and goes out and you didn't get the nutrients. That's exactly what happens. I'm not going to describe some examples for you, but you get the picture. Okay? Anyway. So it's very important. Very, very important that you eat and do have proper mastication. Eating habits during meals affect brain function. In my home, I tell people, I hear that phone again, because, it's sometimes we're at the meal, but we're not at the meal. We're checking the phone, checking the time. I'm like, why? We're at a meal together. Let's turn. I mean, sometimes we're in the living room and we're calling our daughter instead of, you know how Hispanics are. Hey, it's time for worship. No, we send them a text. Literally in the other room. Come on, we can get up. You know what I'm saying? So the point that I'm trying to say is, it's important for us to watch the things that we do. Do not eat and watch things as you eat. Bad idea. You will invariably overeat. Okay, but what does that mean properly? There's your chipmunk. Chew your food thoroughly. You will need it. It's very important. Avoid heavy mental work right after the meals, for it is very important. It is in vain that you rise up early, for God, gives His beloved His sleep. Sometimes we do things that are totally in vain when we do not think or pay attention to this. Okay, I'll give you a summary for this one, okay? This lady here was born and grew up a vegetarian for all her life, But due to certain circumstances in her life, she decided that being vegetarian was not enough, and she wanted to be complete plant-based. They call it vegan, but veganism is actually a religion. Did you know that? The veganism is actually a religion. And I learned that the hard way. I was in Chicago. I was having lunch, talking to some colleagues, and the guy looked at me and said, "Hey, they got some really good steaks and whatever." I was like, "No, I'm plant-based, I'm vegan." He's like, oh, okay. And so, finished my lunch and everything else. Next day, he sees me at lunch. He's like, "Those shoes that you're wearing, is that leather?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I thought vegans don't do that. And your belt, is that leather too?" And I said, "Listen, I'm plant-based. Vegan is just the name so you can get it." You know what I'm saying? But veganism is a religion. Anyway, the point is, this lady decided to be plant-based, okay? And so after that, I'll read this to you. She feels healthier overall, with more energy, that's her actual picture there, and credits the diet to her aligning her moral and with her actions. April notes that the media now widely reports the health benefits of plant-based eating, which she sees as vindication of her church. She happens to be a Seventh-day Adventist teaching. Okay? And this was published in this UK journal. You can go read it there. They have hundreds of other stories of people who have accepted the ability or the challenge of eating plant-based diets that are such a blessing to you. Okay. I have slaughtered the time for this first one, but I'm going to give you 5 minutes for Q&A here if you might have some. And so I'll let my brother here pick whoever is first. Yes, madam.